they're saying they're using a proxy, Canadian USD, for the hedging of the capital expenditure program in Australia. They're really, actual fact, hedging their own exposure at the head entity level, not the Australian entity level. Would you say that's therefore not a correct perception?
In a consolidated company, it doesn't really matter where you do the hedge. If you're looking at a global company, then you in effect, if you're looking at a global company, then you'll say at headquarters, and I've done this. You'll say at headquarters, okay, what's my overall net exposure to particular parts of the world, and you'll get offsetting expenditures. You look at then what the net is, and you'll say, okay, is this something I'm happy to live with or not? So there's no problem at all with the Central Treasury in Canada saying, okay, we've got a net exposure here, we need to cover it. And it doesn't matter whether it's an Australian, if it's 100% owned, then it doesn't matter whether it's in Australia or PNG or Angola or wherever. You say, okay, well, that's my exposure for the corporation, and I need to address that some way, or I need to understand whether I keep that exposure or whether I need to hedge it. And so I don't have a problem at all with the Central Treasury hedging this. That's in a 100% owned entity. That's perfectly okay. The bit that I'm struggling with is the hedge that they've done. For an Australian dollar expenditure, they've taken a CAD to US dollar hedge. Now, on your scenario of saying, okay, they're hedging all of the US dollar revenues back to CAD, then why would they take their expenditures to US dollars from CAD? That bit of it doesn't make sense. So, if in that scenario, there's a very simple hedge to do, which is Aussie to CAD. So you take your Aussie expenditure. If you wanted to have everything in CAD, then you hedge your Australian dollar expenditures into CAD, and that's a very simple solution. It doesn't make any sense to me to in effect counter the hedges that you've done from US dollar to CAD by increasing your exposure to US dollar by doing a CAD to US dollar hedge. It's counter to your objective.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the same point you would say before about with overhedging is all you're doing is you're actually in fact creating yourself an exposure by overhedging as well. So you've only got
that's just punting basically. Go to Flemington and take a bet. As I said, the vast majority of resources companies realised that was a really bad idea about 25 years ago.
With regards to the actual operation between the head entity doing so-called hedging or wherever it is for their subsidiaries, because normally subsidiaries, in my experience, are very concerned about their cost centres and their profit at the end of the day and what they report back up, because it all goes to their own potential bonuses, etc. One would have thought they had a very close examination or control over how the hedging was done by the head office on their behalf. Would not that normally be the case?
Yeah, all companies are different, and companies change through time. So particularly if it's a 100% owned entity, obviously, as you probably know, in the oil and gas industry, there's a lot of operations around the world that aren't 100% owned, and so you have affiliates where they've either got minority shareholders or where they're the operator and other people have got interests in the deposit. Bass Strait, for example, where you've had the world's longest incorporated joint venture with Esso and BHP. Esso is the operator, BHP has got 50%. And in those sort of circumstances, it gets a bit more complicated. But where it's a 100% entity, local management get concerned about how they're going to be rewarded, but that's obviously going to depend on the rules that apply in that particular company, and they can vary, and